wealth, fame, the limelight, it all disappears quicker than you'd expect. Even those who once reigned supreme, who commanded global adoration, couldn't avoid a penniless end. No grand estates, no fancy vehicles, just illness, debt, and encroaching loneliness. And sometimes, not even a proper burial. Do you assume all our celebrated icons will forever bask in affluence? The reality is far grimmer. If you remain unconvinced, the 21 narratives I'm about to share serve as evidence. Tales of stars who possessed everything yet met tragic ends no one foresaw. 1. Lisa, left eye. Lopes's life ended in a tragic accident, a chaotic conclusion to a tumultuous existence. More than a gifted rapper, she was the vibrant heart of TLC, the iconic 90s girl group. Yet beneath the glitz and fame lay a life marked by turmoil, scandals, crippling debt, and mental instability, propelling her into a downward spiral. Lopes possessed an indomitable spirit, passionate and courageous, but this very intensity fueled unpredictable rage. In 1994, a rash decision led her to ignite her boyfriend's $1.3 million mansion, belonging to football player Andre Rison. The repercussions, a substantial lawsuit, probation, further solidified the image of a brilliant yet unstable artist. Shortly afterward, TLC, the top-selling 90s girl group, whose A Crazy Sexy Cool album sold 23 million copies globally, faced bankruptcy due to a disadvantageous contract. Once a leading hip-hop figure, Lopes grappled with debt, contract disputes, and a rapidly unraveling personal life. In April 2002, seeking solace, she traveled to Honduras, but the trip was fraught with ominous signs. A week prior to her death, her vehicle struck a 10-year-old boy sharing her last name, Lopes. Despite taking him to the hospital and covering all expenses, the boy perished. This devastating event intensified her feeling of being pursued by an inescapable fate. She confided in her diary, "Something's following me. Maybe it wants me. Maybe it got the wrong person." On April 25th, hoping for respite from her anguish, she was driving on a desolate Honduran road, unbelted, when her car veered off course, skidded, and overturned. While others in the car sustained minor injuries, Lopes was ejected, dying instantly. Found beside her was that diary, its haunting entries a testament to her life. Lisa Lopes lived intensely, and her death was as tempestuous as her life, a painful yet seemingly predetermined end. 2. Gary Coleman, the child millionaire, died alone and impoverished in a hospital bed. He was once one of Hollywood's most valuable child actors, famous for his role as Arnold Jackson on Different Strokes, a familiar face on American screens, earning millions as a child. However, his fame masked an unforeseen tragedy. In the 1970s, America adored the small boy with a quick smile, and his catchphrase, "What you talking about? I about Willis." Gary earned $70,000 weekly, accumulating a vast fortune. The cruel twist is that he never truly controlled this money. His adoptive parents and managers handled all his finances. By the time he discovered this, it was too late. In 1989, Gary sued his adoptive parents, winning $1.3 million, but this couldn't save a life already crumbling. In 1999, he declared bankruptcy, burdened by $70,000 in debt. From millionaire to working gas station and mall security jobs and cheap TV roles just to survive. His life became a continuous struggle. In 2007, Gary married Shannon Price, 22 years his junior. Their marriage lasted less than a year, marred by arguments, violence, and lawsuits. They divorced, yet continued living together in a small Utah apartment. These were difficult times, marked by illness, poverty, and obscurity. On May 26, 2010, Gary fell down the stairs, hitting his head. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition with a brain hemorrhage. 2 days later, on May 28th, he passed away in a hospital bed, penniless and alone, except for his ex-wife who signed the papers to end his treatment. Once a child millionaire who captivated Hollywood, Gary Coleman's quiet ending reflected a world that had seemingly forgotten him. 3. Lady Day, the jazz angel, was found in a hospital bed, her wrists bound by handcuffs. More than a jazz singer, Billie Holiday embodied pain, her melodies steeped in sorrow. Her captivating voice once enthralled the world, yet her life was marred by addiction, poverty, and relentless police harassment. Billy's life was never easy. From a young age, she faced hunger, abuse, and abandonment within a harsh society. However, her voice, filled with anguish, propelled her to fame. Her song, Strange Fruit, resonated across America, but it also made her a target of the government. The FBI relentlessly pursued her, not for criminal acts, but to silence her outspokenness. In 1947, Billy was arrested for drug possession. A year in prison stripped her of her fame, fortune, and the ability to perform. After her release, she was banned from venues serving alcohol, effectively ending her career. From glittering stages, she plummeted to society's margins, singing in small bars for meager tips. In 1959, ravaged by illness, Billy was hospitalized with severe liver failure. She possessed only 0.70 ton, a shameful amount for a music icon. Even in death, she found no respite. Police raided her hospital room, discovering a minuscule amount of heroin, leading to her arrest at her bedside, her hands chained to the bed frame. No medication, no family. Just 2 officers stood guard. On July 17, 1959, Billie Holiday breathed her last in that hospital, alone and shackled, with no mourners, no grand tributes, only a weakened body and eyes devoid of hope. Billie Holiday sang of others' suffering, but ultimately her own life was her greatest tragedy. 4. The tragic downfall of Dorothy Dandridge from fame to impoverished death is a stark Hollywood tale. Dorothy Dandridge, a black actress of exceptional beauty and talent, shone brightly in a racially segregated Hollywood, achieving a landmark Oscar nomination for Best Actress in Carmen Jones' 1954, a first for a woman of color. However, this success proved fleeting. Abandoned by Hollywood, she spiraled into a devastating tragedy. Hollywood's cruelty and indifference ultimately destroyed Dorothy Dandridge, not through violence, but through neglect and oblivion. Initially, she was a captivating star, a radiant beauty amongst predominantly white stars. Yet, when the spotlight dimmed, Dorothy faced overwhelming debt and suffering. Her marriage to dancer Harold Nicholas disintegrated due to his infidelity, leaving her alone with their intellectually disabled daughter, while her white contemporaries enjoyed opulent lives. She struggled to secure meaningful roles, and after placing her trust in a dishonest financial manager, she was defrauded, burdened with substantial debt. By 1963, Dorothy was officially bankrupt, possessing a mere $3. From a glamorous star, she transitioned to minor stage performances in nightclubs, earning meager wages. Despair, reliance on sedatives, and depression consumed her, leading to the estrangement of even her friends. Hollywood had no place for a fallen star. On the night of September 8, 1965, Dorothy returned to her dilapidated apartment. Her final thoughts remain unknown, but when her maid discovered her the following morning, she was lifeless, her body cold. The press attributed her death to a drug overdose. Whether this was accidental or a deliberate act of despair in the face of a cruel fate remains uncertain and ultimately uncared for. Dorothy Dandridge, once a silver screen queen, became a forgotten name, a star who perished in poverty and solitude. 5. Etta James, the legendary vocalist whose voice captivated the world, was born into impoverished circumstances. Possessing raw talent, she ascended to become one of the 20th century's most celebrated singers. Songs such as Tell Mama I'd Rather Go Blind, and most notably, At Last, propelled her to immense fame. Millions poured in from sold-out performances and chart-topping records. However, alongside her success, drug addiction engulfed her life. In the 1970s, heroin addiction consumed her, leading to arrest, rehabilitation, relapse, and the dissipation of her assets, all traded for momentary highs. Despite efforts to reignite her career, substantial debt remained an insurmountable burden. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in back taxes, lawsuits from former managers, and massive medical expenses overwhelmed her. Houses, jewelry, and other possessions were sold to make ends meet in her final years. She became reliant on family for survival, no longer capable of supporting herself. To compound her suffering, leukemia, heart failure, and kidney disease plagued her. A body that once delivered timeless music became frail and weak. No more concerts, no more income, only months of battling illness and destitution. Then, on January 20th, 2012, Etta James passed away peacefully in a Riverside, California room. 6. Joe Louis, a boxing legend, passed away in debt, reliant on charity. Once renowned as the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis was among history's greatest boxers, holding the heavyweight title for over a decade. His record boasts 66 wins out of 69 fights, with 52 knockouts. He wasn't merely a ring legend, he was a national icon, America's pride. Yet, this glory proved fleeting. On April 12, 1981, Joe Louis died from cardiac arrest in a Las Vegas hotel. The shocking aspect wasn't his death, but his dire circumstances beforehand. This boxer, who once earned $4.7 million, died impoverished and deeply in debt, surviving only through the charity of others. His downfall began in the 1950s when the IRS levied a crippling financial blow, a $500,000 tax debt that, with interest and penalties, spiraled out of control. From millionaire to bankrupt drifter, he struggled daily. Desperate, Joe Louis left boxing, taking any available job. He refereed matches, participated in exhibition fights, and even worked as a greeter at Caesar's Palace Casino, where former admirers now looked on with pity. His life became a series of hardships, poverty, pain, and humiliation. He battled depression and drug addiction, spending his final years wheelchair-bound. Without Frank Sinatra's assistance, his survival might have been impossible. Ultimately, Joe Louis died alone and indebted, his funeral expenses covered by charitable donations. And 7. The quiet passing of funk icon. Rick James in a small apartment marked a tragic end. Rick James, a funk legend, was a flamboyant artist with iconic hits such as Super Freak and Give It To Me Baby. He once amassed a considerable fortune, living lavishly with extravagant parties, drugs, and women. However, this glory was fleeting. On August 6, 2004, Rick James was discovered lifeless on a sofa in a modest Los Angeles apartment. Gone were the opulent mansions and flashy cars. Only a solitary figure remained, depleted by illness and debt. In his final years, he subsisted on minimal royalties, battling deteriorating health stemming from drug abuse and a dissolute lifestyle. The coroner attributed his death to heart failure, but toxicology reports revealed 9 different drugs in his system, from sedatives to antipsychotics. His demise, though not unforeseen, remains a somber and haunting conclusion for a legend who once captivated the world. 8. DMX, the rap icon, succumbed to his long-fought battle with addiction. More than just a rapper, DMX was a hip-hop legend, a powerful voice behind anthems like Rough Riders Anthem and Party Up. He achieved remarkable success, scoring 5 consecutive #1 Billboard albums, solidifying his place among rap's elite. However, his public image masked a harrowing personal struggle. Years of addiction, legal troubles, and overwhelming debt cast a dark shadow over his life. On April 9, 2021, DMX passed away after a week-long coma resulting from a drug overdose and heart attack. His decline, though sudden, was a slow burn. His internal battle was evident for years. From a multi-million-dollar peak, DMX's fortune plummeted, leaving him with a $1.24 million debt, homelessness, and no assets. He found himself crashing on friends' couches. In 2018, a tax evasion conviction added to his woes. Despite attempts at recovery after prison, his health deteriorated beyond repair. On that tragic night, an excessive drug dose led to his collapse, a coma, and ultimately, death. He left behind meager financial resources, significant unpaid debts, and 15 children without support. 9. Odetta, a soulful voice, faded in poverty. Odetta Holmes, the legendary voice of America's civil rights movement, inspired Martin Luther King Jr. and Bob Dylan. Hailed as a folk music icon, her song, "This Little Light of Mine," echoed across generations. However, behind the glory, her life wasn't a series of triumphs, but a tragedy extending to her final moments on December 2, 2008. In a cold New York hospital room, Odetta left this world. A heart that sang of freedom fell silent, not from old age, but from illness and poverty. She'd stood on the White House stage fighting for human rights through music, yet never received the million-dollar deals of her peers. All her earnings went to charity and medical costs. When her heart condition worsened in 2006, Odetta still toured, not out of passion, but necessity. Medical bills mounted, insurance was insufficient, and her savings vanished. In November 2008, she was admitted in critical condition. Odetta's last dream was to sing at Barack Obama's inauguration, America's first black president, but her illness prevented it. A month later, she passed quietly, leaving an immortal musical legacy, but no valuable possessions. 10. Sammy Davis Jr., a legendary entertainer, died impoverished and ill. Sammy Davis Jr. was among the 20th century's most celebrated performers. Not only a superb singer, but also a phenomenal dancer, a brilliant actor, and a member of the iconic Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Sammy conquered Hollywood and Las Vegas, earning tens of millions of dollars, living luxuriously, and enjoying immense fame. Yet ultimately he lost everything and died destitute, burdened by debt. Earning millions annually, Sammy spent money just as quickly. He lived extravagantly, lavishing cash on cars, mansions, expensive wines, and lavish parties. He readily helped friends, family, and anyone requesting assistance. However, this generosity couldn't shield him from a harsh reality. He owed the IRS $7 million in back taxes. The IRS acted decisively, seizing all of Sammy's assets. His multi-million-dollar Beverly Hills mansion was auctioned, and his memorabilia and personal belongings were piled outside, sold for almost nothing. A star once adored by millions now stood amidst his confiscated possessions, helpless as his life crumbled. Even after the IRS seized everything, Sammy hadn't yet reached his lowest point. In 1989, he was diagnosed with throat cancer, a death sentence for a singer. Doctors stated that removing the tumor could save him, but he would lose his voice. Sammy hesitated. If he couldn't sing, what was left? By the time he consented to surgery, it was too late. The cancer had spread, stealing his legendary voice. His final months were spent in silence, poverty, and despair. No more stages, no more money, no more glory. On May 16, 1990, he passed away in a foreclosed mansion, on a sickbed, penniless. His wife, Altavice Davis, also faced tragedy, drowning in debt and living in poverty after his death. 11. O.J. Simpson, a gridiron god, met a tragic end amidst financial ruin. He was once a celebrated sports icon, a football legend with a remarkable NFL career. His exceptional speed and powerful runs garnered him MVP awards, cementing his place among history's greatest players. His success extended to Hollywood, with roles in popular films like The Naked Gun. However, this fame couldn't shield him from a devastating downfall. On April 10, 2024, Simpson passed away at age 76 following a prolonged battle with prostate cancer. His life ended with significant debt, his legacy tarnished by enduring scandals. Once a beloved American hero, Simpson's life took a sharp turn after the infamous 1994 case. The deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman resulted in a highly publicized trial. In 1995, he was acquitted, but 2 years later, a civil court mandated a $33.5 million payment to the victims' families. Unable to meet this obligation, Simpson declared bankruptcy, forfeiting all his possessions and relying on his NFL pension for survival. In 2007, he was implicated in an armed robbery in Las Vegas, receiving a 33-year sentence. After serving 9 years, Simpson was released in 2017, but his post-prison life was arduous. From a celebrated sports legend, he became a social pariah, losing lucrative endorsements and acting roles. O.J. Simpson was burdened by insurmountable debts. As illness took its toll, his final days were spent in quiet obscurity, far from the press and former friends. His death lacked the fanfare of a celebrated legend. Instead, it was marked by lingering legal disputes over unpaid restitution. 12. Rock legend. Billy Preston, a musical genius, passed away in debt and solitude. More than a gifted musician, Preston was a key figure behind legendary acts such as the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Eric Clapton. He achieved multi-million-dollar success with hits like Nothing from Nothing and Will It Go Round in Circles. He once enjoyed immense wealth, playing keyboards for the Beatles on Get Back and contributing to iconic Rolling Stones albums. Millions poured into his accounts. However, tragically, Billy lacked control over his life. Cocaine addiction consumed him, leading to reckless spending on parties, drugs, and poor financial decisions. Most devastatingly, his manager, the individual entrusted with protecting his fortune, betrayed him, embezzling his entire wealth and leaving him destitute. Debt mounted, the IRS pursued him, and Billy was forced to sell his possessions from homes to musical instruments. His life dwindled to medical expenses as his health deteriorated, his kidneys failing and his body ravaged by years of substance abuse. In 2005, Billy slipped into a coma, remaining unresponsive for a year. On June 6, 2006, he breathed his last in a dilapidated hospital, without fame, fortune, or anyone present to mourn him. 13. Jackie Wilson, a soul legend, collapsed on stage and died in poverty. He was once among the greatest soul artists, possessing not only a powerful voice but also pioneering R&B to new heights. Hits like Lonely Teardrops and Higher made him a top star, earning millions of dollars. However, behind the glamorous facade was a series of unimaginable tragedies. On September 29, 1975, Jackie Wilson took the stage in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It was expected to be a routine performance, but as he sang My Heart Is Crying, his heart literally failed him in front of hundreds of enthusiastic fans. Wilson collapsed, his head striking the floor forcefully, yet nobody immediately assisted. They initially believed it was part of the performance. By the time they realized the seriousness, it was too late. Wilson fell into a coma, never regaining his ability to sing or dance. For years prior, he battled poverty despite earning millions. His manager misappropriated nearly all his wealth, leaving him with a substantial tax debt to the IRS. No house, no car, nothing. When he suffered the stroke, he lacked health insurance, and his family couldn't afford the hospital bills. Wilson was transferred to an inexpensive nursing home, where he remained motionless, forgotten. On January 21, 1984, Jackie Wilson died after almost 9 years in a vegetative state. There was no grand funeral, no crowds of mourning fans. His family struggled to gather funds for burial expenses. Even a headstone was unaffordable. It took over a decade for admirers to collect funds to erect a memorial marker. Far too late for a legend who once enthralled the world. 14. The acclaimed vocalist Phyllis Hyman, known for her mesmerizing voice, passed away alone, burdened by debt. This soul icon, who once captivated audiences worldwide with hits like You Know How to Love Me, found herself isolated after the curtain fell, struggling with debt, depression, and alcoholism. Hyman's life, marked by tragedy from its inception, was a stark contrast to her early success. She possessed beauty, fame, and unparalleled vocal talent. However, as trends shifted, her star dimmed. The vibrant stages of her past became distant memories, recording contracts dried up, and Hyman descended into darkness. She confronted the harsh reality of fading relevance, finding solace only in alcohol and sedatives as an escape from her mounting problems. Ultimately, on June 30, 1995, she succumbed to her struggles, found deceased in her apartment with an empty pill bottle and numerous unpaid bills surrounding her. 15. Isaac Hayes, the Shaft genius, experienced a dramatic downfall. His immense success, a transformative film score for Shaft, an Oscar win, and millions earned, made him an R&B and soul icon. He enjoyed a lavish lifestyle, possessing mansions, luxury cars, and a life of opulence. However, by 1976, his fortune, totaling $6 million, had disappeared due to excessive spending, managerial fraud, and poor financial decisions. To settle his debts, he liquidated his assets, his home, vehicles, and even his music publishing rights. Despite attempts at a comeback through acting, voice work, and even a role in South Park, Hayes never regained his former financial stability. He lived modestly in Memphis, a stark contrast to his past glory. In 2006, he departed from South Park amidst controversy following a Scientology parody. This faith was important to him. Lacking consistent income, his health declined. On August 10, 2008, a stroke proved fatal, and he passed away alone at home. The once powerful Isaac Hayes' passing marked a poignant and ultimately bittersweet conclusion to a brilliant musical career. 16. From stage fame to impoverished death, Florence Ballard, the original lead singer of The Supremes, a 60s iconic girl group, was once a radiant star. Her potent vocals formed the basis of the group's spectacular success. Yet, shortly after reaching the pinnacle, Florence was ousted, forfeiting her career, wealth, and fame. Florence Ballard's decline started within the very group she founded. As the Supremes ascended, Motown executive Berry Gordy focused on Diana Ross. Ballard, once the group's heart, became a secondary figure. Tensions escalated, and by 1967 she was dismissed with a meager $139,800 settlement, a fraction of the Supremes' massive earnings. Losing her prominence, Florence Ballard engaged in a legal dispute with Motown but lost. A solo career attempt failed. Labels refused to sign her, finances dwindled, deals collapsed, and her singing aspirations vanished. By 1975, she was homeless, reliant on welfare, residing in a dilapidated apartment with her spouse and 3 young children. From a star on America's largest stages, she became an overlooked woman, forgotten. In early 1976, Florence Ballard attempted a resurgence, appearing on television, but her body, weakened by years of adversity, failed her. On February 22, 1976, Florence Ballard succumbed to cardiac arrest at 32. No stage lights, no applause, merely a quiet funeral for a woman who once shaped history, yet was forsaken by that very legacy. 17. Iconic soul singer Marvin Gaye, tragically murdered by his father, on 1 April 1984, shocked the world. The death of Marvin Gaye, one of history's most celebrated soul singers, at the hands of his own father in their home, was a shocking and unforeseen end. However, for those familiar with his life, it was merely the culmination of a long series of misfortunes. Marvin Gaye was more than a singer. He was a cultural icon and a musical genius who revolutionized the music industry. Yet, his personal life was consistently turbulent. His relationship with his father, Reverend Marvin Gaye Sr., was perpetually strained. The stern and cruel father continually disparaged his son's career, consistently refusing to acknowledge Marvin's artistic talent. This was not simply a generational conflict. It was a lifelong feud fueled by deep-seated animosity. In his final years, Marvin descended into a state of profound despair. He battled severe drug addiction, squandered his wealth on frivolous pursuits, and accumulated over $9 million in unpaid taxes. To evade the IRS, he fled to Europe, wandering aimlessly but unable to conquer his debilitating addictions. Desperate, he returned to the U.S. and moved in with his parents, a decision that proved fatal. The small Los Angeles house was not a sanctuary, but a volatile environment. Marvin and his father engaged in incessant, violent arguments. He was profoundly depressed, mentally unstable, and increasingly reliant on drugs, becoming easily angered and provoking the father he had resented for years. Then, the inevitable tragedy occurred. On that fateful day, another argument escalated into a shouting match, culminating in a gunshot. Reverend Marvin Gaye Sr. fired the fatal shot, the bullet piercing the air and striking Marvin in his bedroom, the very place where he sought solace. His own father ended his life. When police arrived, the elder Gaye stood impassively, the gun still in his hand, displaying no emotion, as if his act had been justified. Marvin Gaye died at just 44, one day before his 45th birthday. His career was over. The applause, the cheering crowds, and the bright lights were extinguished forever. 18. Red Fox, a comedic pioneer who brought black comedy to the forefront of American entertainment, collapsed on set and died penniless. His legacy includes Sanford and Son, a hugely popular 1970s TV show that showcased his bold, satirical humor. Millions adored his style, yet behind the scenes, a series of financial mishaps led to crippling debt. He passed away broke, possessing not a single cent. Fox, once living opulently in a $1 million home, driving luxury cars and wearing designer jewelry, faced a dramatic reversal of fortune. The IRS, after discovering years of unpaid taxes, seized his assets, his mansion, cars, even his clothing, in 1989. His home was foreclosed, leaving him in a small apartment without adequate bedding. The comedian, formerly a national treasure, borrowed from friends unable to afford proper meals in his twilight years. He attempted a career resurgence with a role in The Royal Family, hoping to improve his finances, but this effort proved unsuccessful. On October 11, 1991, while filming The Royal Family in Las Vegas, Fox suffered a fatal heart attack on set. Initially, his colleagues believed it was a comedic bit given his history of staging heart attacks on stage. However, this time, the silence was profound. He didn't recover. His death left behind only debt necessitating his friends, including Eddie Murphy, to cover the funeral expenses. 19. Saxophonist Dexter Gordon, a king of his instrument, remained a legend until his death. This jazz icon, a soulful melodist, captivated audiences globally during the 1940s and 50s. Albums such as Go and Our Man in Paris propelled him to fame, generating hundreds of thousands of dollars, a significant fortune for a jazz musician at the time. However, substance abuse, heroin, and alcohol marred his success, leading to sleepless nights. Gordon faced arrest, performance bans, and industry marginalization. His career declined, his wealth dissipated. In his later years, he sold his instruments, relying on welfare and friends for survival. The 1980s offered a brief respite when Gordon appeared in Round Midnight, earning an Oscar nomination. This happiness proved short-lived. Throat cancer silenced his voice and kidney failure ravaged his body, leaving him debilitated and unable to perform. His finances plummeted. Rent became unaffordable, and even obtaining food became a struggle. Ultimately, on April 25, 1990, Gordon succumbed to kidney failure and throat cancer. 20. Soul legend. Wilson Pickett's life disintegrated amid despair. A soul music icon, Pickett possessed a powerful voice behind enduring hits such as In the Midnight Hour and Mustang Sally. During the 1960s, Pickett topped charts, selling millions of records and earning millions of dollars. He enjoyed a lavish lifestyle, complete with luxurious cars and grand estates. However, this outward success masked a harsh reality. Alcohol and drug abuse consumed him, driving relentless partying and reckless behavior. By the 1980s, his career had imploded. Pickett lost contracts, squandered his fortune, and faced numerous lawsuits, ultimately declaring bankruptcy. In the 2000s, Pickett was no longer a celebrated star, lacking work and unable to access recording studios. Illness afflicted him, yet he couldn't access adequate treatment. He resided with family in Virginia, in humble surroundings, a stark contrast to his former life of opulence. This difficult existence continued until January 19, 2006, when Pickett succumbed to a stroke. A soul legend, quietly passing, leaving only his music and memories of a glorious past. 21. Donny Hathaway, a genius, was ravaged by mental illness. A cruel fate befell Donny Hathaway, the legendary soul singer, the man whose voice silenced the world. He once collaborated with Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder, yet instead of reaching new heights, his life plummeted into a dark abyss. Schizophrenia spiraled him into paranoia, depleting his funds on treatments, leaving him almost destitute. On January 13, 1979, New York City was frozen, but within the Essex House Hotel, a far worse tempest raged in Donny Hathaway's mind. His illness plunged him into a panic, screaming about unseen threats and impending harm. Overwhelmed by fear, Donny lost control. Then, a horrifying thud shattered the night silence. Donny Hathaway fell from the 15th floor. Police concluded he was alone, but the truth remains elusive. One certainty persists. Donny was alone, impoverished, and succumbed to a tragedy long foreseen. Recognition and wealth don't ensure a happy conclusion. These icons once dominated the world, yet ultimately departed in destitution and isolation. Their narratives serve as a cautionary tale. Renown can blaze brilliantly, only to vanish in a flash. Which individual on this roster, in your opinion, suffered the most devastating destiny? Or is there another figure familiar to you whose tale should be included? Post a comment below to relate their account. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to avoid missing the shadowy aspects lurking beneath Hollywood's glitter.